Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Vikings are poised for a bounce back tonight despite losing to the Bucs last week. Also, Austin Ekeler breaks down the shocking loss to the Dolphins, and the Mets made the best move they can make to contend next year. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat over 50 infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Minnesota Vikings lost a shocker at home in week 1 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as favorites, 20-17 against Baker Mayfield and company. And for their troubles, they get to go on a short week and face the defending NFC champions. It is Vikings and Eagles on Thursday night. Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings joins me now. And Luke, let's start with what went wrong for Minnesota in week 1.
Turnovers. It's the simplest thing ever. Don't fumble, you win the game. They outgained the Buccaneers by a huge margin. They were down in the red zone twice, threw an interception once, fumbled once, had another strip sack happen in the first half. They could have gone into halftime 24-10 and the Bucs feeling like they're completely out of it. I mean, look, they gave up 20 points on defense and they turned the ball over 3 times on offense. The fix is simple. We don't have to think very hard.
Yeah.
Protect the ball. You win the game.
And actually, defensively, they only allowed 3.6 yards per play to Tampa Bay. They put up 5.9 yards per play on offense. If you just look at the underlying numbers, this should have been a butt kicking for the Vikings. So, okay, the sky's not falling.
Yeah, and I think that's the vibe in the building is like they're looking at that going, look, we did a lot of things correctly. We don't have to make any giant wholesale changes. We're going to stay the course here. We just have to protect the ball, but things are going to come around.
Okay, so they've got to come around this week against the Philadelphia Eagles, who did not look great themselves in week 1, albeit against a really good New England Patriots defense, at least we think at this point. So in this matchup, what can they do against Philly that they didn't do against Tampa Bay?
Coverage wise, I think they can stay in middle of field close a little bit more behind their blitzes. That is something that the Patriots did that seemed to give the Eagles quite a bit of trouble. When they would blitz, they would go single high, cover 1, off man. And that's what the Vikings typically like to live in. For whatever reason, they had some game plan thing where against the Bucs, they like to back off into like cover 2 kind of things behind their blitzes, but that didn't work as well, especially down the stretch when they really struggled to get off the field and the Bucs started to eat clock. But I think they can steal a lot of the defensive stuff that Belichick did because the Vikings live in the same universe with the same lingo and the same toolkit that the Patriots have. I mean, it's Flores, right? He comes off of that tree. So I think they can just kind of copy paste a lot of that and say, okay, Eagles, did you figure out an answer?
I'm wondering about balance on offense for Minnesota. 44 passes from Kirk Cousins, just 14 running back runs. Is that manageable? Is that a winning formula for this team moving forward?
It certainly can be, but those 14 runs need to not be throwaway downs. They spent a lot of effort this offseason in changing the way that they approach the run schematically, changing the skill players that they had to sort of to
right, no Dalvin Cook.
No Dalvin Cook, right? And they kind of just don't care. They're saying, okay, we're going to do a committee and that's going to be fine, right? Running backs don't matter. We got the analytics GM. I mean, come on. But bringing in Josh Oliver, committing more fully to a fullback in CJ Ham and all that, and then trying to use lead blockers a lot more. But I think O'Connell's still O'Connell. He still wants to throw the ball. And we're not going to suddenly become the Dan Campbell Lions where we want to make our identity as a ground team, but you need some kind of run game. You need it to control the clock. You need it to control the pace of the game. You need it to set up play action in places. You need to be able to run the ball, and those can't be throwaway downs. So those 14 plays being bad still has an outsized impact. They got to figure that out. But from a volumes perspective, yeah, they could be 75-25 all year, and I think they'd probably be fine with that.
Stay up to date all year on the Minnesota Vikings by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Vikings on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Coming up, just how shocking was the Chargers' loss to the Dolphins? We get a first-hand perspective from star running back Austin Ekeler. Before we get to that, though, Aaron Rodgers gives us a thought on his future. Modern medical care and treatment are crucial, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jase Medical is your solution. Just fill out the online form, and one of Jase Medical's board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then they send you your prescriptions to one of your partner pharmacies, where Jase orders will be filled and mailed directly to your home. And not only that, you can send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions anytime. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medicals offers the Jase case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Aaron Rodgers will miss the rest of the season with his torn Achilles, in case you hadn't heard. This raises questions about the future of the newly minted quarterback of the New York Jets, who is going to be 40 years old when he's rehabbing a serious injury. For the moment, it would seem he addressed these questions on Instagram. He posted a long message that included, "The night is darkest before the dawn, and I shall rise yet again." Rodgers' comments came shortly after Jets coach Robert Saleh and owner Woody Johnson both indicated they expect the four-time MVP to return in 2024. Not sure why Rodgers felt the need to channel his inner Harvey Dent, but it would seem you can expect him to be running the Jets offense next season. At least for now. Maybe he'll flip a coin. Three key Philadelphia Eagles players, running back Kenneth Gainwell, cornerback James Bradberry, and safety Reed Blankenship, have been ruled out of Thursday's home opener against the Minnesota Vikings. Bradberry remains in concussion protocol, while Gainwell and Blankenship are dealing with rib injuries. Defensive tackle Fletcher Cox also has a rib injury and is listed as questionable. For those of you interested in the fantasy football impact of it all, the loss of Gainwell should lead to a bigger role for DeAndre Swift. Getting Swift more involved was already on Coach Nick Sirianni's radar after the running back finished with just 2 touches in the opener. The NBA Board of Governors unanimously voted Wednesday to approve tougher resting policy rules and punishments for star players who sit out games. The new policy includes those games on national TV and in-season tournaments, as well as multiple All-Stars sitting out together for regular season games. The rule would ultimately give the league office authority for greater oversight over discipline for missed games and the ability to fine teams more than $1 million for each instance of violations for resting players. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said the player participation policy is something that the NBA, the NBAPA, and individual players and teams all want to return to that principle that this is an 82-game league. Nobody told the Clippers, apparently. On the diamond, the Atlanta Braves clinched their 6th straight division title.
This is one of those nights, again, as I mentioned, one of the steps you want to take along the way of accomplishing the dream of being World Series champions. And the Atlanta Braves, they put a lot of value on this NL East title.
Yeah, and they should. I mean, it's not easy, obviously, although the Braves have made it look so much, especially this year, doing it as early as they have. But, you know, winning a 6th consecutive National League East title and doing it in the fashion that they have done it this year, I think makes it a little bit different. I mean, it was pretty much domination from beginning to end.
It really does. This has felt much more like a, bell to bell, wire to wire. I mean, there were some places where you felt like, well, maybe the club's wavering just a little bit, but right about the time those thoughts would creep into your mind, well, they'd go on another winning streak, or they'd have a month of June the way that they did, or they'd turn around the month of August and turn themselves right back into the powerhouse that they've shown themselves to be from pretty much opening day on. And they've done it despite some injuries, some inconsistencies, and they've also done it on the strength of an incredible lineup and a lot of next man up mentality that has helped this club to do what it's done so far, again, with many miles left to travel.
And the Colorado Rockies notched their 2nd straight win over the Chicago Cubs.
Rock on Rockies fans, Paul Holden here from the Locked on Rockies podcast. Back-to-back wins for the first time since mid-August for the Colorado Rockies, and it's thanks to Chris Bryant's return and the young guys and the long ball. The Rockies played stellar defense in this series and have highlighted why Brenton Doyle is one of the, if not the best outfield defender in all of baseball. And Nolan Jones is doing great things. Eleris Montero continues to swing a hot bat, and the Rockies, like I said, get their first back-to-back series win. Well, not series win, but back-to-back wins and a series win for the first time since mid-August as they take down the Chicago Cubs in 2 out of 3. The dreaded San Francisco Giants head into town next. The Rockies still looking for their first NL West Series win of the year. Can they get it and plunge San Francisco's playoff hopes? We'll see. We'll be breaking it all down right here on Locked on Rockies.
The LA Chargers lost in dramatic fashion to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. Chargers running back Austin Ekeler joined Locked on Chargers host David Drogemeyer and Daniel Wade to break down the game.
But yeah, man, week one, we came out swinging. I think so. There was some good and some bad in there. Obviously, I ended up getting banged up a little bit there, my ankle there at the end of the game. And, it's part of football. And unfortunately, we kind of saw with, Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff, right? Nobody is safe from injury in the NFL, and when you get the ball in your hand a lot, guess what? You as well are not safe. And so, yeah, I ended up, messing up my ankle a little bit. But, it's one of those things where we try to get back as soon as we can. And hopefully you're not, out at all. And if you are out, hopefully, hey, it's not too long.
But I do want to talk about just the game, obviously, the season, the way it ended last year. And then, you're looking so much forward to getting that first win, getting back on track. It doesn't happen. So how important do you think it is for this team to kind of go on a run to give you guys that confidence that you are a good team and you can still do something special in 2023?
Yeah. In the NFL, you're judged on winning and losing. That's the NFL. They don't care if we lost every single game by 2 points, people would say that this team sucked, right? Yeah. But they don't matter. It doesn't matter how you win or if you lost like, the Giants did by 40, like it doesn't matter. It's a loss. Like they can come back and win by 40 next week. I think 2 years ago when we were making our playoff run with Herb and Joe and Staley's first year, I think we lost to the Ravens like 42-7 or something like that. But at the end, we're right there getting ready for, a playoff win and ended up losing when the Raiders kicked a field goal on us instead of taking a knee. But that's a different conversation. And so like, it's not everything, to make sure that, you win the first game, you win every single game, but obviously you don't want to lose any games. But it's good to see, I think our offense is playing at a high level. We need to get our defense rolling a little bit. Offense, we can still clean up some stuff. At the end of the game, our 2-minute drive wasn't that great to go and seal it and give ourselves a chance to win with a field goal. And so that's football. That's what makes it so great. There's so many different variances of it, but I like where we're at right now. And I'm glad we didn't lose by 40. Me too. That is the different feeling than losing by 2 for sure.
Yeah, obviously offensively, like you mentioned, you guys kind of didn't really end the way you really wanted to, but overall the offense looked fantastic under new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And considering it was only the first game, do you guys think you have a chance to be even better than what we saw on Sunday?
Ooh, that's a great question because it's like, how do you define what is better? Because it's not black and white, right? Like is better scoring 40 points next week or scoring more than 34, or is it just winning the game? So yes, want to be better, but I think it's more of a philosophical question of like perspective, like what is better? Because I'm going to come out, I'm going to try to play as consistent as I possibly can. And I know the rest of my teammates are as well, but there's going to be new challenges that are in front of us. So we're not going to be able to, compare apples to apples necessarily. So I would say based off of the conversation I just had a little bit before this, we need to play better because we need to win. So if we win, then yes, we played better. If we lose, we didn't play better. That's kind of how it goes. So yeah, we need to play better.
It's definitely fair.
Well, we'll be quick with this last one because I know you got to get out of here, but you were calling for a long time for another running back behind you to kind of step up and take that mantle of RB2. And it feels like Joshua Kelly's done that. And he had a great game, probably his best game as a Charger in this last game. What have you seen from him over his few years since when he started in 2020?
Yeah, man, this guy's been making some strides, and it's showing up. It's showing up in the preseason when we had like record-breaking preseason rushing numbers. Yeah. And there's been the stigma around our building where it's like, hey, like we can't run the ball. Why can't we run the ball? Let's run the ball. Yeah. And so guess what we did? Dang it, we ran the flipping ball. And that's why I got to remind you to go freaking vote for me on NFL.com/FedEx, for Ground Player of the Week, so I can help provide some scholarships out here. But right now, when it comes down to running the ball and getting this ground game established, I think it's so important for us because we know the receivers that we have. So we know we're going to be able to throw it. And, you're going to have games where you're going to lean heavily on one or the other based off of the defense you're facing. And, when you're playing a cover 8 team like we saw last week, your running backs and tight ends got to come alive.
Stay up to date on the LA Chargers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Chargers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Mets made the most important move they can make to be contenders next year. This has not been the Mets' year. I may have said that before. This year, Steve Cohen made a huge investment into the team, and it did not pay off. Now the Mets have hired David Stearns to be the president of baseball operations. As Ryan Finkelstein says on Locked On Mets, this is the best move they could have made heading into next season.
This is massive news for the New York Mets. This is, again, the best thing that's happened to this franchise since Steve Cohen took it over. It's that simple, because as much as Francisco Lindor was a great trade and a good contract, as much as you like the other free agent signings the Mets made, signing Max Scherzer to eventually win 101 games last year, or the Kodai Senga signing that's worked out great, or extending Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz, whatever it is, whatever good news that you want to bottle up in the last 3 years in the Steve Cohen era, this is the one that, in my opinion, will hold the most value moving forward. This is the one that hopefully will put the Mets on a path to not only contention, but perennial contention.
I would be a little more convinced of this if David Stearns' tenure in Milwaukee hadn't ended the way that it did. And it's not as like Steve Cohen is not going to maximize his opportunities at all times. When you can just buy your way out of problems, the marginal advantages that you can gain from the analytics of it all, they're not quite as important. When you can just give Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander the bag, I don't know how much of an edge that Harvard education is really providing. At the same time, this is about building a farm system. It's about evaluating talent. It's about hiring the right people and putting the right processes in place. When David Stearns went to Milwaukee, he was one of the most sought after personnel people in the game. Still, it seems to me that if we're talking about the biggest moves that could have been made, well, I can think of Max Scherzer in the past. I can think of Justin Verlander in the past. So even if it is the case that this is the biggest move that they could have made heading into the next season, the big moves that they've made that were the biggest moves they could have made heading into next season haven't exactly paid off so far for the New York Mets. And finally, the main man involved in taking down the quarterback found it strange he wasn't protected better. Micah Parsons joined everyone watching Sunday Night Football who was confused as to why Daniel Jones wasn't pulled from the Giants' season-opening loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas sacked Jones 7 times and constantly pressured the New York quarterback in Sunday night's 40-0 blowout. Parsons said Tuesday on his podcast, "It's called protecting your guy, something I thought the Giants should have done." Maybe he was just looking forward to sacking someone else for a change in the fourth. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will the Eagles begin the season 2-0? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.